All right, my lovers, we're going to talk about bikes and the pricing of bikes and looking at, the value, let's say, how much a bike costs versus how much you should get for that bike. So, let's face it, new bikes can be expensive. So when you watch YouTubers talk about bikes and you hear someone say, oh, it's a really affordable bike at $1,000, $800, $600. And for a lot of us, who are used to getting bikes from like maybe Walmart or on my era, I got bikes from Toys R Us back in the day. We look at the price of that. We're like, whoa, that's a lot for a bike, man. And, especially with a lot of e-bikes now, you can get e-bikes for around $800, $900, $1,000. You're like, oh, is it really that budget to pay $1,000 for a bike that I got to pedal? And it's like, it just depends on how you look at it. The thing I think about bikes when you look, let's take a sticker price of $1,000. You got to understand that a decent bike that's worth that much money should last you for a long time. So obviously you're going to have to do some maintenance on your bike over the years, but depending on what the use case is for your bike, $1,000 isn't necessarily expensive. If you're using it to commute to work or, plus you add recreation on top and it gets you to the grocery store and stuff, the amount of things that it can do, especially if it can alleviate some of your usage of the car or eliminate it completely. I had times in my life where I went from driving every day to my car would sit so much that the only time I had to drive it was to move it so I didn't get parking tickets for being in the same spot so long. So when it's like that, then I feel like you're really saving money. You're saving money on gas, insurance, everything. So it really just depends on how you look at it. If you have a job that brings you in income and you have a roof over your head, then $1,000 is not a ton of money, especially as that bike can last you 10 years and you can make payments on it so that, if you have like $100 a month, you can get a bike. The value is the key, not the total price. And, you get what you pay for, and that means something. If you spend $3,500 on a bike, but you use it all the time and you get what you pay for and you enjoy it, then the price is good. My father used to say, a bargain I do not enjoy is not a bargain. So it just means, look, if you're going to pay for something, use it. If you if you get a good price for it, air quote a good price, but you don't use it, it's trash. If you spend a lot on it, but you use it all the time, then it really doesn't matter, especially if you can afford it. We'll look at my 95 Cannondale touring bike. I bought it for like $275. I probably spent $200 a year on maintenance / upgrades. Owned it for about 15 years. Okay, so that's about $3,000, $3,275 over the course of 15 years of ownership. Money well spent. Do it again. The money that it saved me on the car at the time outdid that over the course of 15 years. Absolutely. So what we'll do now is we'll look at the pricing of bikes and kind of what I've been able to do, because I've just looked at so many bikes online and then bike shots and et cetera. I can kind of look at the price range and tell you what features to expect, what to look for when you're buying that bike. That way you can kind of see if things are punching above their price range when people say that. It's a thing to say in reviews and stuff. And this helps you review a bike on your own. So let's look at it like there's 3 tiers of bike. Okay, there's the entry level, or we'll call it the budget bike. Then there's the mid bike, and then there's the high end bike. Okay, so with a budget bike, I'm going to say the price of a budget bike is between $250 based on the Ozark Trail. It's basically the most affordable gravel bike I've seen. And, $1,000 bike will go with like the bikes that State Bicycles offers or the bikes that Poseidon offers. Now, on a budget between $250 and $1,000, here's what you will generally expect to have on the bike. It'll have quick release spacing. It'll have, in a lot of cases, a road drivetrain, a Serra, Tiagra, Ultegra L2, and a 2x drivetrain. It'll have mechanical brakes. It'll have a budget wheel set, and you're lucky if you have a name brand tires, but generally no name tires. Again, at that price range, or tires you just haven't heard of commonly. The bike frame will be made of aluminum or steel. It'll probably be a little bit on the heavier side, the total build setup configuration. The tires will have tube setups, and the cassette at the back will be between 7 to 10 speeds. It might be a 2x, so you would get that cassette with a 2x And then that's kind of what you're looking at with budget pricing, $250 to $1,000. So anything that you get that is greater than what you've just heard, if you get and when I say 2-by drivetrain in a budget, $250 and $1,000, you could get a 1-by drivetrain that's flat bar more likely than you would get a 1-by gravel group set. Like a group set that is gravel specific you'd be hard pressed to get it within that $250 to $1,000 budget, but the bike is pretty decent if it has a gravel group set and it's that price. That's something where you say, okay, it's punching above its weight. Okay, so that's the budget between $250 and $1,000. Now I'm going to go to the mid $1,000 to $2,500. Now, again, if I'm spending this much money, these are the features that I'm looking for on the bike. And if it does not have these features, then I'm like, oh, am I really trying to spend, again, on a gravel bike? I'm not talking about other styles of bikes. I'm specifically talking about gravel bikes. I didn't really mention that before, but that's what I'm talking about. So for gravel bikes, I would say the mid range is $1,000 to $2,500. Now, what I expect if I'm going to spend that much, what you should expect is through axle spacing. You should expect a gravel specific drivetrain, an Advent X, a Dior drivetrain, a GRX drivetrain, some sort of SRAM drivetrain. You can expect hydraulic brakes, a budget wheel set, but you might get branded tires that the bike should be tubeless tire compatible. It should come like with the tires and the wheel setup that you should just be able to put tubes in a valve, or they set it up themselves for you. 1-by drivetrain specific to gravel with low gearing. Within that price range, you should really try to get that. You can have 2-by drivetrains. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would also argue that the premium drivetrains are 1-by as far as just adventure gravel bikes. You can argue about that in the comment section. That could be just a personal opinion. This cassette at the back, you should expect an 11 speed plus cassette for that price range. 10 plus, maybe you could say 10, 11 plus speed cassette, maybe paired with a 2-by, but definitely with a 1-by, you should at least get a 10 speed, 11 speed, 12 speed. And, maybe if you find it on a sale, like a Campagnolo gravel group sets, which are 13, the Ekar ones. As far as the materials that the frame would be made at, you still would be finding a lot of aluminum, a lot of steel. You can, if you're lucky, find some carbon frames in this price range. Ooh, maybe a budget titanium frame. I've seen the State bicycles are offering a titanium for their all-road at $2,500. They're sold out currently, so that's the lowest I've seen for titanium. So I'll say budget titanium. And then this is one thing that I've not heard people talk about, but I've looked at Bike Insights and looked at the geometry of bikes, and for the higher end of this, $2,500, I don't want any toe overlap. That I feel is a luxury to have on a bike. But it's definitely something that if you're spending at $2,500, you want to look at the Bike Insights and check the geometry of a bike. My Fazari Schaefer has no toe overlap. The Husky Dogler has no toe overlap. The Marin DSX has no toe overlap. So you can compare the bike you're looking for to those bikes, or any bike that doesn't have it. No toe overlap is a great feature to have when you're going slow, especially over rugged terrain. When you're going uphill and you need to steer and get your foot out the way, it's an amazing feature to have. You don't notice it until you have it, but it increases the capabilities and the handling of your bike. So having no toe overlap is something you would really want to shoot for if you're going to the higher end of that. It's just something to consider when you're buying your bike, something I did not consider because I didn't know. Until I had the Fazari Schaefer with that feature, I didn't realize how amazing it was. And now when shopping for a bike, I would always factor that in, especially if I'm spending on a mid to high end on a bike. I need that on the frame, the no toe overlap. Okay, so now if I'm at the high end, we'll go $2,500 and above. Now, these features at the low end of this, you got to shop hard to find these features, but I have seen it online for this price. And I would just say that the $2,500, maybe you could say $3,000 is the start of high end. If your budget started at that you could look for a on sale high end bike. Okay, so you're getting the electronic shifting you can start to look for. You can get a mid wheel set with nice tires. You might be able to get a dropper post. You might be able to get some custom sizing where the bike company is checking, your size and specifying the build to your actual custom size that you give them. You might be able to start getting some higher end titanium, 12-speed cassette at the back, all the other frame materials, carbon, titanium, aluminum, chroma. You can get all high-end versions of these that are $2,500, and it's not a big deal. The materials that the frame is made out of versus carbon, aluminum, all that stuff, they don't matter so much in terms of if it's a high-end bike and it's well built, you can use any of those materials to build a high-end bike. So if you see a bike that's made with those materials, I wouldn't say one is better than the other, or one you should spend more. It's a $2,000 steel bike or $5,000 steel bike is not worth it. It very well could be, especially depending on the components, right? So the drivetrain, again, when I say electronic shifting, you're getting all the things from the other group sets, right? So you should have if you're spending high end, you should have a gravel specific group set, and you can even get lucky enough to find an electronic gravel specific group set with low range gearing that you could use for competition. So that's kind of like the budget, the price range budgets. Get in the comment section if you have any questions, or you just have any information you would like to add to this. Please make a comment. So that's kind of like the three tiers as I see it. So when you're shopping for a bike, really, when you start to see the price, you can almost start to predict what kind of features it will have, and you'll start to notice that these features, when you see the price, okay, so this video is a pretty good, again, shopping, especially if you're shopping online and you can't be there to see the bike itself, and all you're looking at is these numbers and features. If you have a question on a bike, or there's this particular one you've been looking at or something, please let me know. I love to dork out, so I'd love to talk and see what y'all are thinking about. All right, take care, my lovers. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.